Welcome to the Daily Influence, where our mission is to deliver a daily dose of positive influence that can uplift you personally or be shared within your sphere of influence. While not every episode may directly apply to your unique circumstances, we strive to provide insights and inspiration relevant to most people's daily, weekly, and monthly lives. Whether you are tuning in during the morning, noon, or night, the Daily Influence is here for you. Listen, share, and embrace the power of influence in your life.
Welcome to Daily Influence. I'm Gregg-Brooke Koleno. Thank you for joining us for your daily dose of positivity. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Matt Friscia, the owner and manager of Transworld Business Advisors of Grange. With a wealth of experience in business brokerage, Matt has not only guided numerous clients through the complexities of buying and selling businesses, but has also personally navigated his journey by successfully selling his own enterprise. So he has firsthand experience and professional expertise, making him a valuable resource for entrepreneurs and business owners. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Matt, could you share a bit about your background and what led you to where you are today with our listeners?
Yeah. I worked in corporate America for 15 years in the media business, and a lot of those years were with the Disney company, which is an exciting business to say the least. But I kind of got the entrepreneurial itch and ended up buying in-home senior care franchise and ran that with my mom's a nurse. So it was kind of a family business that we had as well. And I've made every mistake in the book in that first year and a half of buying that business. Was trying to do it kind of semi-absentee and just had some stuff that just didn't work out initially, burned up a lot of money. But when I finally jumped in 2 feet, it really started taking off. Got an SBA loan to buy another territory that had clients and caregivers in it. And then really, skyrocketed there by year 5. When I had checked the box of business ownership, I liked owning my own business. I didn't want to go back to corporate America, but that business in itself is, I guess maybe for somebody who's not in healthcare on a regular basis, it's a very 24/7 business. So I had engaged Transworld Business Advisors to sell my business. And from that, it was a journey to kind of have that experience about what goes into it, what happens. And it took a minute. It took a little more than a year to do that. But eventually got across the finish line and enjoyed doing it. It was B2B, similar to my media sales stuff. And I thought, wow, this is it. I'd really love to help people do this. And then I had already had the experience now of starting a business, growing a business, buying an existing business, and then selling a business and the transition that goes with that.
Thank you for sharing that story. I'm excited to jump in our questions today, Matt. You've transitioned from being the business owner to a business broker. What inspired you to make the shift, and how has your personal experience influenced your approach at Transworld?
Yeah, so kind of going back to having sold my own business, I kind of have a bleeding heart for small businesses because I do think that they make the whole universe go here. We do a lot of what's referred to as Main Street business sales, business brokerage. So we do a lot of storefronts or small manufacturing or healthcare, you name it. We're pretty agnostic in that regard. But we also do, lower mid-market businesses that are 5, 10 million or more. We've worked with some private equity, but I think being able to say, I walked in your shoes, I understand that this may be a foreign process for most people. Most people are, we talk to folks that either are 60, 70, 80. Hey, my kids don't want my business. I don't know what to do. I was going to shut the thing down. Or like myself, hey, this business just logistically doesn't work for me and I want to find an exit. So being able to help those people or kind of super serve the underserved, as we say, is important to me.
Thank you for sharing that. As the owner of your organization, how do you balance your individual leadership responsibilities with fostering a collaborative team environment?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's like an in-depth one there. I think for me, just with my corporate experience, and as a sales manager as well, is you kind of the whole, teach them how to fish, right? teach have a camaraderie of, we have a meeting every week, and we talk about our successes, we talk about our failures, we talk about what's working, what's not working, and oh my gosh, this super weird thing happened to me this week that everybody should be aware of, so maybe you can approach it a little bit differently than we went through it. So I think that's really important, but just team engagement is really important, and also being available. I mean, being available and doing things that, they say, like, if they see you doing it and there's nothing that I won't do that I'm asking them to do, I think folks run through walls for you, right? Because they're like, okay, he's got my back. He's doing it. He's down here in the trenches with me, and I think that means a lot. Taking calls at different times of day and night as well. Whatever works.
That's great advice for leaders. Thank you. Matt, what strategies have you employed to assemble and lead a team of business advisors who can effectively guide clients through the buying and selling process?
Yeah, I think the why is really important. I've never spent a dime to advertise to bring somebody into my team. It's mostly organic folks that I've seen in action working and was impressed with what they were doing or how they approached situations or how they moved, or somebody that was generally curious and asking the right questions. And maybe they started out, I have a couple of realtors with me that started out just getting a business valuation for somebody because they said, well, I can sell real estate, but I don't know anything about selling a business. And if they're curious enough to say, well, how would I do that? How can I make that happen for me? And they're willing to put in the time and effort, then that to me is it's a great potential candidate to work with it. And it's not easy. The sales cycle is pretty long in business brokerage, and there's a lot of weird things that can happen along the line where deals die, or you get lucky every once in a while where one goes really smooth. But for whatever it's worth, yeah, that's typically what I look for, is just, you're certainly, if you're doing it to get rich quick, this isn't the business for you. But you're kind of selling the American dream is what you're doing. Business ownership. It's really exciting for people.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you for sharing that, Matt. The business transactions can be complex and challenging, like you mentioned. Can you share an example of a particularly difficult situation, and how the contributions of you or your team led to the successful resolution?
Yeah. How many hours do you have left for this, actually? So it's we always say that, and I'm sure on their side they'll say brokers, but it's kind of like lawyers, lenders, and landlords, right? There's multiple things that happen in a deal. So one is, a lot of stuff typically falls apart in due diligence, right? So first of all, it's just getting the right buyer to come through the door to actually make you an offer. And then the second part is, we work through a lot of, and I just kind of went over this today with my team, is like, kind of the most calm person in the room is going to land the plane correctly, right? And so there's a lot of emotions that start to happen. People have put their blood, sweat, and tears into these businesses for years on end. It's very personal to them. They've never done this before. So I think having the education correctly when working with folks, not to overgeneralize, but a lot of times it's just miscommunication about, well, what's standard, what's not standard, what's important to you, right? So what's important to you could be something wildly different is important to somebody else. Is it speed of the deal? Is it the actual dollar amount? Do you mind about any seller financing that might come into it? So, and sometimes it's an attorney that, doesn't do M&A transactions or doesn't do business brokerage, and you can tell from a mile away, and you're trying to just be as helpful as possible, while also trying to, you're not educating per se, but you're just trying to work with what the tools that you've been given in this particular transaction, right? So I think that's really important. And then lastly, just with lenders, right? There's lenders that are easy to work with. There's some that, oh my gosh, you've put 60 to 90 days into a deal and you're neck deep in it, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is never ending. Like, this is going to take forever. Or you get to a point where there's a landlord, and now the landlord's kind of licking their chops that they're going to increase that rent for this new person, but now all of a sudden the business doesn't cash flow as well if there's a higher rent involved, if there is rent, right? Maybe there's real estate, I don't know, it could be a bunch of different things, but all these different little nuances start to come into play And I've seen deals die for the silliest reasons, actually, just because one thing was really important for one person and that other person just couldn't get on the same page for something. So that's what's kind of exciting and kind of fun about it, is you're always working through something.
So I have to ask, what's the silliest thing that's happened that made a deal not go through?
Well, sometimes it could be. I always think it's silly when there were, it's a it's $1 million deal, and we're arguing over, $5,000, right? And it's like somebody's going to get $1 million in this transaction. So like now all of a sudden we're so worried about the majority of what I see is like just a small, like a fees. Somebody's not paying a fee for something, or there's a specific object that wasn't disclosed in regards to the hard asset, right? That's involved. So, but that small thing could mean a tremendous amount to somebody. And somebody else, it's more the principle. Like it's the principle of getting this last $5 that's, tied in with this. That's a lot of silliness that I see. Maybe just not being able to see the big picture on what's actually happening there.
There's a lot of emotion that goes into selling your business, especially if it's a founder or family-owned business selling. How do you handle those situations with your having a responsible influence to make sure that they're prepared and hope, make things more smooth?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of education up front, right? This is a marathon. This isn't going to happen in a short period of time. Deals are going to come and die multiple times potentially, right? So like if they're hearing a lot of this up front, then maybe there's less emotion involved in it. Explaining to them, this is a transaction to your buyer, right? This may be your whole life that you've dealt with, but to the buyer, it is a transaction. And let's remember that this is a transaction that's happening here, right? That I think is really important. So I think as long as you're being a good resource through that process and really talking about a lot of, you start to do a bunch of deals and then you really see like, wow, like we don't want that to happen again, right? So you start to really understand, some things that really should be talked about at the beginning of the process versus, boy, this is just coming up now. All of a sudden we have to have a large discussion about something that, may or may not go over well.
How do you encourage continuous personal development amongst your team members? And how does this focus on individual growth contribute to the overall success of the organization?
Yeah, so I guess we're lucky with Transworld. There's hundreds of offices and thousands of agents. So and we're part of Midwest Business Brokers and Intermediaries, MBBI. It's a local group here. Talking to other people, talking to other brokers, going to all the learning or we have multiple webinars and things that happen within Transworld, but really picking up the phone and seeing in our network, maybe somebody's done a similar type of deal that you're trying to do. What happened in their deal? Like, what does it look like exactly for that? So there's the IBBA. So that's kind of the more national scope for our organization. There are courses in there. There's classes in there as well. So for me, it's more of, and even the other business that I had, it's always educating yourself. Reading like books that tie into, situations that are relative or just kind of general business stuff, I think on a regular basis is going to make and analytics on top of that as well. Like if you're tracking your numbers and you know exactly what you're doing is extremely important.
That's great advice. Thanks for sharing it. Matt, what message or words of encouragement would you like to share with our listeners who aspire to make a positive difference in the world?
Well, these are very big lifelike questions. I like them. I'd say just don't be a jerk. Be a good person, right? I mean, it's like we all have challenges every day. That's stuff that happens to us, and I think kind of having a positive attitude and being curious, asking good questions, and I think mostly for us, there's kind of a saying on good deals for good people, right? So be a good resource too, right? Every call isn't like, what am I making? Obviously you have to be careful of your time. That's all time is very important. But I think the more, there's a great book called The Go-Giver that's out there, you can read it in a weekend. It's like this thick. So it's like that whole sort of like, you're always giving back, right? But it's kind of the universe as you're giving away, like it's eventually coming back to you, I think, in some way, shape or form.
Great advice. Thanks for sharing it, Matt. Matt, I'm so grateful you were able to join us today. Thank you for sharing your stories and your advice.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
If you want to get in touch with Matt, the best way to do so is their email or website, and we'll put that information in the show notes for you. Thank you for being with us. If today's episode inspired you, make us a part of your routine and share it with those around you to help spread the positivity. We appreciate your support. Have an amazing day. Bye bye.